What's up, Mission Valley kids? Welcome to another week here at church. We are going into week 2 on our study on the book of James. And as we mentioned last week, we're actually doing a church-wide series. So that means everyone from you as kids all the way up to adults, we're going to be studying the same thing each week. We're also going to be receiving letters each week from different kids just like you who need a little bit of advice. And so as we go through our study each week, we're going to learn about different things that we can use to be able to help these kids with advice. Before we get to today's letter, let's jump right back in where we left off and study a little bit more of what God has to tell us through the book of James. I'm going to read on starting at verse 9. It says, "If a believer is poor, he should take pride that God has made him spiritually rich. If he is rich, he should take pride that God has shown him that he is spiritually poor. The rich person will die like a wildflower in the grass. The sun rises and becomes hotter and hotter. The heat makes the plants very dry, and the flowers fall off. The flower was beautiful, but now it is dead. It is the same with a rich person. While he is still taking care of his business, he will die." This passage is a little bit hard to understand, but it's really important for us to understand. So let's look at it a little bit closer. James is talking about the rich versus the poor. He says that the poor should be happy because God will make them spiritually rich. And the rich should be happy because God will make them spiritually poor. So what does that mean? It doesn't really make sense, right? It seems a little bit opposite, that the rich is poor and the poor is rich. What does that mean? What this means is that the rich should be happy and they should be excited because they will understand their need for God, and because of that, it will cause them to trust in God. He compares the rich to a plant. He talks in this passage about how when you have a plant, that the sun will rise and become hotter and hotter, and if it doesn't have water, the flowers are going to fall off and die. So let me give you an example. I have this plant here. It used to have beautiful flowers on it, and it smelled good, and every time I walked into my office, it was great because I saw these beautiful flowers. But I did a really bad job watering it, and I stuck it in the window where the sun shines on it, and because of that, all the flowers died. They fell off, it doesn't smell good anymore, and look, all the leaves are starting to turn brown too. In this passage, James is comparing the rich to a plant like that. He's saying just as a plant needs water in order to survive, the rich needs God in order to survive. And so because of that, they should be happy because they will go through the understanding of how much they need God. And just like all of us, we need God too, right? Each and every day, in order to survive, in order for our needs to be provided for, we need God. So that's something that's really important to remember as we study the book of James today.
Going in here, we have a treat. Do you like marshmallows?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you want to have a seat? Let's get comfortable. The deal is, you can eat this marshmallow now, or you can wait until I come back and I'll give you 2 marshmallows. If you decide to change your mind, that's fine, okay?
I'm waiting.
Okay, I'm gonna push you in a little bit more. Oh. I'll be back in a few minutes.
You want to have 2 marshmallows? Yeah. Then don't eat the marshmallow.
Hey Lola, how'd you do?
Good, I was waiting.
You were waiting, good job. Here's your second marshmallow.
Thank you.
You didn't eat your marshmallow. Now, so you get another one.
That took a little bit too long.
I know, I'm sorry.
So last week when we studied the book of James, we learned about troubles. We learned about the fact that we should be happy when we go through troubles, because when we go through troubles, we learn patience, and patience helps us become more complete, and when we become more complete, we become more like Jesus. This week we're going to learn about another type of trouble called a temptation. But before we get to the book of James, let's read through our letter that we received this week. You ready? It says, "Dear Mission Valley kids, today at school a friend left her locker door open with $5 lying on the top shelf. Even though I know it is wrong to steal, I was tempted to take the money. After all, who would know? Why would God let me be tempted like that? Signed, Feeling Guilty Amy." Have you ever gone through something like Amy shared about? It might not be when you saw $5 and you wanted to take it, but has there ever been something that you really wanted to do even though you knew it was wrong? Let's talk about that a little bit. Does anyone have any examples of something like that? Those are really good examples, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. And that actually brings us to what we're going to be learning about today. The word for that is temptation. A temptation is when you have something that you want to do even though you know it's wrong. So what does the Bible have to say about temptation? Let's read on in the book of James to see what we have to learn today. It says, "When a person is tempted and still continues strong, he should be happy. After he has proved his faith, God will reward him with life forever. God promised this to all people who love him. When someone is being tempted, he should not say, 'God is tempting me.' Evil cannot tempt God, and God himself does not tempt anyone. It is the evil that a person wants that tempts him. His own evil desire leads him away and holds him. This desire causes sin. Then the sin grows and brings death. My dear brothers, do not be fooled about this. Every good action and every good gift is from God. These good gifts come down from the creator of the sun, moon, and stars. God does not change like their shifting shadows. God decided to give us life through the word of truth. He wanted us to be the most important of all the things he made." So we talked a little bit about temptation. And temptation is when there's something that you know you're not supposed to do and you want to do it anyways. So what should you do when you're tempted? You shouldn't do it, right? And when you choose not to do it, the Bible says that it will make us strong. And that's what you call perseverance. Perseverance means to be able to stand up or stand strong under some type of load or pressure. So for example, have you ever seen in the Olympics or on TV a weightlifter? You know, someone who carries a really huge barbell? Let's watch this video and I'll tell you how this is a demonstration of perseverance. You'll notice that he walks up to the weight, lifts it up, takes a breath, and then lifts the weight straight up over his head. He stands there with his arms stretched up high over his head, holding the weight as long as he can in order to win the contest. As long as the weightlifter is standing with the weight over his head, he's remaining under a heavy load. He is persevering in order to reach the goal of winning the contest. The contest is a test of his strength. In our life, our goal in persevering during a trial is to obey God and to become more like Jesus. The test is to stay right where God has us and to trust in Him. That's why when we are tempted and we're able to persevere, we're supposed to be happy, like it says in verse 12. The last thing that's really important for us to understand today is to understand where temptation comes from. In the Bible, it says that when we are tempted, we should not say that God is tempting me. Evil cannot tempt God, and God himself does not tempt anyone. It is the evil that a person wants that tempts him. His own evil desire leads him away and holds him. This desire causes sin. Then sin grows and brings death. So what James is saying is that when we are tempted and when there's something that we know we're not supposed to do, that temptation doesn't come from God. It comes from the evil one, which is the devil. And when we do what we know we're not supposed to do, which means we give in to that temptation, that's called sinning. So it sounds kind of sad, right? It kind of sounds discouraging, but there's a promise attached to that. It says, "My dear brothers, do not be fooled about this. Every good action and every perfect gift is from God. These good gifts come down from the creator of the sun, moon, and stars. God does not change like shifting shadows. God decided to give us life through the word of truth. He wants us to be the most important of all the things He made." So what this is saying is that even though sometimes we're tempted, and remember that the temptation comes from the evil one, not from God, and when we give in to the temptation, it leads to sin and death, on the other side, there's God who gives us life. And so because of that, we can be encouraged that in the face of temptation, we can trust in God and He will help us to stand up under those temptations and have life instead. So earlier today, we gave some examples of times when we were tempted to do something wrong. But I also want to talk about the times that we choose to do something right. So can you guys think of an example of a time that you were tempted to do something wrong, but instead of giving into that temptation, you chose to obey God and do what was right instead? Those are great examples, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. So we're almost done for the day, but before we close, we want to make sure that we talk about what we can write back to our friend who wrote us the letter today. So let me read it for you guys one more time. Dear Mission Valley kids, today at school, a friend left her locker door open with $5 lying on the top shelf. Even though I know it is wrong to steal, I was tempted to take the money. After all, who would know? Why would God let me be tempted like that? Signed, Feeling Guilty Amy. So before we close for the day, I want you guys to take some time to talk with your teacher about what kind of things we can write back to our friend to encourage her in the face of her temptation. Alright, that's it for today. I'll see you guys next week.